Welcome back, everyone. In this lesson, we want to take a look at transactions and why they're so important. A transaction is basically a unit of work, and it allows for all the processes, everything that comprises the transaction, to either succeed or not succeed. The classic example that they give for this is if you have a checking savings account and you go into the ATM to pull money out of your checking. There isn't enough money in it, so it actually tries to get money out of your savings, transfer to your checking, and then from the checking to give it to you. If in the process of the transfer from savings to checking there's a problem, the system crashes, or something goes wrong, then it's possible that money will be deducted from your savings without being added to your checking, and that will be obviously a problem. A transaction would prevent something like that from happening. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of this and how transactions can be useful. In the previous lesson on stored procedures, we created this stored procedure add, model, and description. And I've put together these select statements that we actually had previously without the top two. I added that, but it allows me to see the top, the last items that were inserted into the tables, product table, product model, product description, and then the joining table, product model, product description. So let's go ahead and run this stored procedure. I'm going to create a new query right here, and I'm going to call on exec add model and description. We wrote this, and of course SQL Server is being helpful, is telling us what we actually need. We need a product name and varchar 50, a product description, and varchar 400, and a culture, which by default is English. So I'm going to add a new product name. I'm going to call this cool product stuff. And for description, I'm going to say, let me actually make this cool product name. And for description, I'm going to call it cool product description. I will leave the culture as English, so I don't need to actually put it in. Let's go ahead and execute this. And it says it's successfully completed. If I go back to my queries and actually run that, you can see that my cool product name was added to the product model table. Then the cool product description was added to the product description. And the join table got the key from this one, and the key from this one, and the culture. Now, if I were to run this a second time, let's actually execute that, even though I want to point out that you can see the primary keys being added individually, we will have a problem if I run this a second time. Notice that it says there is a violation of a unique key constraint, aka product model name. Going back here and execute this, you can see that the product model ID did not go up. It stayed at 133. Product name has a unique key constraint placed on it. So because I didn't change the name, cool product name, it actually says, nope, you can't do that. Notice, however, that in the description, it added a row that was completely unnecessary. But in the joining in table, nothing happened. It remained as it was, the 133 from before and the 2015. So now we have a situation that we have a table that has added something that shouldn't be there. And a transaction is designed to actually prevent something like that from happening. So let's go ahead and actually turn in our stored procedure into a better one, into a transaction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to this add model and description. I'm going to right click it and choose modify. First and foremost, notice that it changes to alter procedure as opposed to create procedure. Most everything is going to remain the same. Not a whole lot is going to change here. But I'm going to come down here, and where I have the begin, starting with set no count, I'm going to come down after my variable declarations right here. And I'm going to put in a begin try clause. And I will indent this stuff so it's a little bit clear where the block of code is. I'm just tabbing over. So if you're familiar with try clauses in languages, the try clause is when you are trying to execute some expressions. And if they're successful, great. If they're not, an error is generated and is thrown into what's called a catch clause. So we're going to have a begin try clause right here. And we're going to basically try to do all of these statements. One thing that we will do down at the bottom, if everything is successful, we are going to call on commit tran. You can also spell out transaction if you like. And over here, I'm going to back indent and put in end try. So a begin try is always completed with an end try. We are committing a transaction over here if all of these are, successful. Of course, if something does go wrong, something happens in here, something doesn't work out, then we will have an error. So we're going to write our begin catch clause. And just so I don't forget, I'm going to type in end catch. You notice that as soon as I put in a begin catch, the red squiggly that was here disappeared. It was expecting that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll back my transaction. So all the processes, inserts, updates, whatever that were done are going to be rolled back. I can also print a friendly message. There was an error. And if I want to, I can actually print the error message using one of the built-in functions in SQL. We are going to execute this, and this is going to alter our procedure. Going back to what I had over here, I'm going to purposely change this to a hot product name and to a hot product description. I'm going to execute that. And oops, I have an error. Apparently, the commit transaction request has no corresponding begin transaction. I must have made a mistake in my code. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Let me right-click this and choose modify. And oh yes, I can see there's a problem. So I have begin try and I have a commit transaction, but I forgot that I also need to put in over here a begin transaction. So let's go ahead and put that in. And I have my inserts and I have my commit transaction, which matches the begin transaction. Let me go ahead and actually indent these one more so it's cleaner. I've got my commit transaction. Looks good. And I have my end try. Let me go ahead and execute this. And it's successful. Going back to what we were doing over here, I'm going to try to execute this. And apparently, again, because of the error that I had in my procedure, I'm getting this problem. Let me go ahead and change this to really cool product name and this to really cool product description. Let's execute that. So this is successful, and I'm going to go back to my procedure, the select statements. Which one was it? They're right here. Let's execute this, and you can see that I have my really cool product name, really cool product description, and that's ID 137, ID 2018, and it was added over here. If I would try to execute this again, this is what's going to happen. Notice that we got our friendly message. There was an error. This was part of our procedure, and it tells you what the violation is. Cannot insert a duplicate object. The duplicate key value is really cool product name. So the names must be unique here. Going back to our process right here, remember the last time I did it, I had 137 2018 and 137 here. If I execute this again, you notice that nothing was added. So I did not get something else added to this middle table as I had before, because this was now part of a transaction. And this is why transactions are so useful. I will be posting this bit of select statement as well as the procedure itself, the code for this. Let me right click and modify it. I will also post this for you so you have access to it. Thank you for being a great audience, and if you're enjoying these, please share with loved ones and friends.